The Collective welcomes you. Show countdown engaged. You now have 110 seconds to prepare yourself. Begin program.
Hola, amigos. Welcome back. We're so glad to have you here. We'd like to welcome our very special guest. You may not know his name, but I guarantee you have seen his art. An incredibly talented person and somehow an even better human being, my friend Blake Armstrong.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you guys for having me on here.
Thank you for doing this. We're so excited to get to talk to you about what it is that you do and just kind of a little bit about yourself. And so
Cool.
to kind of fill in our listeners, when somebody asks you, like maybe a stranger that you don't know or just met, when they just ask you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that question?
Well, usually I would just say I make movie art. I'm a movie poster designer, and I design stuff for not just movies, but television, and I do album covers, and I do art for books that don't exist, and I've made comic books, and pretty much any way I can get my brain onto a page, I'm game.
Awesome. Man, that is such, I imagine when people hear that, they're like, you do that for a living? Like that's incredible that you get to make movie posters for a living. Like, come on, that's so cool.
It is. I've loved art, and movies have been my first love since I could walk. And I didn't realize until relatively late in life that it was even a career path at all. I really sort of just fell into it, despite the fact that it should have been the first thing on my mind as soon as I ever said I wanted to do anything for a living. So, yeah, it's a very almost invisible. In general, I think any kind of marketing artwork, the grocery store magazines your mom flips through, those are designed by people,
Mm-hmm.
So, there's designers for everything, and we don't even process it anymore because it's just everywhere. And movie posters are the same. There's a couple rock star movie poster designers that a couple, some lay people may know, but honestly, unless it's a group like us that just really, really are connected to the culture, most people don't have a clue who John Alvin or Drew Struzan is, much less a Blake Armstrong or, the multitude of other art directors out there that do this for a living. So
you're not wrong. The only one I actually knew was Drew Struzan, because he did all the Star Wars posters
the same way.
and the Back to the Future posters.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not wrong there. How did you get into doing this?
Well, as with most journeys into any career path, it was a bit weird and windy, and it wasn't just, hey, I want to make posters, and then I got to go do it. I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18, as soon as I graduated high school. And
right off the boat.
I graduated in, I don't know, when do people graduate? May, June, whatever that is. And I was literally in Los Angeles. Well, I was literally in Los Angeles in September. So, it wasn't even 6 months and I was gone. So, I worked in TV for 10 years. I fell into post-production. I liked that the best. I was a post-production supervisor on some shows. I worked on Fear Factor, Deal or No Deal, bunch of sci-fi, bad sci-fi reality shows. And then sure enough, one day, I'm working at a job and I find out that one of my favorite bands, In Flames, is doing a signing like on the block. And I mean, they're from Sweden and they're coming through LA, and it was like a really cool thing. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go to this. And so I did a piece of fan art that I brought them, and I framed it, and I made two. I made one so that they would sign and I could keep in my house because I'm a big nerd. And I made one to give them because I was like, hey, you guys are huge inspiration. I just want you to know how much you've inspired, and these are the pictures I see whenever you guys play music. And their manager basically was like, here's my card. We should work together on something. And that was really how it happened. And then I ended up, I wanted to do album covers, but they're like, we don't know who you are. So that didn't happen right away.
Take a seat.
But they basically said, hey man, what would you like to do for the band? And I, at that point, had been pitching some shows, and I was kind of in that mindset. So I pitched them. I'm like, well, what if we took all the lyrics from every record and made a story? And I made a comic book for every album. Fans could follow. It would be an accompanying imagery to go with the record, like literally beat for beat with the song.
That is super cool.
Wow.
So
that is awesome.
Pitched them on that. We did the first one, and they were really, really into it. And then sure enough, however many, like a year goes by, they're working on their record. They're not happy with the art they're getting from whomever they were working with. I don't even know who. And they basically said, well, give that LA guy a shot. Give the comic book guy a shot. Maybe he can come up with something, and I'm sure we can get him cheap. And so sure enough, they did, and I did. And we made Siren Charms, the album art for Siren Charms, and that was in 2012 or 13, I think. So that was really when it started for me, and that's when I was like, oh, I have the confidence to do art for a living. So I quit TV, and for 2 years, I just made artwork. I made posters and sold them. I did album work, just whatever I could do. It was really hard. Those were the starving artist years, Rent was a big conversation piece for a long time because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to pay it. And then eventually I was almost at a point where I think I was working, I was doing a favor job for a friend. I was working at BoJack Horseman for a little bit, doing some compositing. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to move into animation. And right about then, BLT, the company I work for, saw my website, I guess, and said, we think you would be a great junior art director making movie posters. Can we meet with you? And as soon as I walked into the office and I saw, these guys have done every poster you've ever seen for the most part. Wow. Just an unbelievable amount of work from BLT. And and my interview was thus. My boss, the owner, Clive Bailey, brought me in, said, who are you? I was like, I'm Blake. And he's like, what's your website? Looked at it, and he said, can you start on Monday?
It's always on Monday. They always say, can you start on Monday?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wasn't that, can you start Wednesday?
Well, I'm glad that the interview was at least on I think it was on a Monday or something, because I had to tell BoJack, I'm like, I have to quit. But they all knew about my work and everything. So they were like, oh, dude, you have to go do that. Like, you have to go try that. And I came in on the Terminator Genesis campaign, which, I could say a lot about that, but that's right. But that was a tough campaign. That was a hard movie to solve. And I don't think we ever really solved it, but it was a really good trial by fire for me, learning how, because it was a second career. I started completely at the bottom. I had no clue how the movie poster world worked and what was expected of me. And I really was, and they were so busy, they were just putting bodies in desks, just hoping people could help. And, I love situations like that. I've been in a lot of them in my life, and those are the ones where if you really hunker down, that's where you can make your, plant your flag and say, I have value, and and I've been at that company now for almost 6 years. So
that's insane.
So, yeah.
That's insane that your entire career is just spawned off an album cover.
I mean, now granted, I've used
crazy.
Photoshop since the 90s. I've always loved art. Ashley could probably attest, when I was in high school, I was in art 5 periods a day. That's all I wanted to do was draw. So I literally negotiated with the gym teacher so that I could get out of gym and do art. And he agreed.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's always been there. And people told me for years, even when I was working in TV, they're like, oh, why aren't you doing artwork? And I always just said, I'm like, this is LA. Like, the best artists on earth live here. I'm some kid from the Midwest. What can I contribute? And I learned a hard life lesson there that everybody's got something to contribute. Okay. It doesn't matter if you're not as good as Drew Struzan. Good quote is like, if you shoot for the moon, even if you don't make it, your view is going to be better than everyone else's. So if you aim high, you may not reach the level that you would dream of, but you'll get at least somewhere in the middle, and that's better than, so yeah, that's how
it really,
that
it's really a lesson in following your passion and the things you love in spite of success. Cause you gave them that fan art just out of love and passion, love for the art and love for the band. And because of that, you were, essentially rewarded with this entire new career.
It's a funny thing. And I'll tell you, that has happened more than it hasn't. Obviously this is what this podcast is about. We wear our hearts on our sleeves about the pop that we love, and it only can, you guys have gotten to talk to so many cool people, that you probably wouldn't have otherwise had a chance to talk to just out of the necessity of the podcast.
Yes.
When you start doing things that, if you like talking to people about anything, then you're going to get to talk to some really cool people because,
we're all about stories. We love stories, and because everything that happens in the entertainment world, there's a story behind it, and that's the purpose of this podcast that we're building, is to get those stories and get them heard.
I love it. It's such a cool idea, and again, and you guys are going to now get to talk to way cooler people than me, actors and writers and, people that are doing all kinds of stuff. And again, if you weren't so cool and passionate and just upfront with how much you loved all this stuff, they wouldn't give, 2 poops about being on a podcast, but they will now because so there's that. And, and I get to work with my heroes, my bosses, the owners of the company. Between the 3 of them have designed, literally thousands of the best movie posters ever made. Just to name a few, my boss, Dawn, she designed Silence of the Lambs. My boss, Clive, he designed Addams Family and the Ninja Turtles. My boss, Rick, designed the whole Sleepy Hollow campaign. He did. My boss, Rick, designed the Jason Takes Manhattan where he's slicing through the I Heart New York poster.
Yeah.
Clive did the Burbs. The list goes on and on and on. And
I got to do some more research on this because, you just listed off probably 80% of the movie posters I have in storage that I've collected. So
I swear. So I have, and a lot of this was done before they started BLT too, mind you. They all came from another agency earlier, and they were so good that they basically struck out on their own and made their own company, which is also an incredible story. I make them tell it to me all the time. But I have in my office at BLT, I have The Burbs, I have Jason Takes Manhattan, and I have Roadhouse, because the 3 owners designed all of those.
Oh, wow.
And everybody was like, well, why you got to kiss up to the owners? I'm like, I'm not kissing up to anything. I had those posters in my room. Yeah. This is why we're here.
Yeah.
That inspiring work is why we're doing this. So, it's always fun to hear them critique their own work. I remember Dawn was looking at the Roadhouse poster, and it's the one where Swayze's leaned up against the wall, and you've got the 3 panels behind, and she's like,
isn't it kind of behind you right now?
We can talk about that poster. That's one of mine. But she told me, I didn't get final approval on that logo. And I said, well, what do you mean? She's like, if you look at the Roadhouse logo on that poster, it looks like toothpaste, not a neon sign. And now if you look at that, you can't unsee that.
Oh, I'll
it really does look like a squeeze of toothpaste on the poster.
Wow.
It does not look. But that's just stuff I never would have, and then Rick was telling me, he's like, oh, the shadow on Jason's knife is slightly off. They didn't photograph that right. And I'm like, man, that's just the stuff I love hearing.
So said you talked about them critiquing their own work. As an artist, with the stuff that I do, even when I have to push it out and say it's done, I never truly feel it's done.
Oh, absolutely. George Lucas said it best. He's like, your work is never finished. It's only abandoned.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for most artists. You're never like, oh, I am wholly satisfied and this is great. Yes. I mean, you may get one of those a decade, really.
Yeah.
And, but most of the time it's either, well, I need to get to work, or I need to wrap this up and spend time with my kids, or I need to do whatever it is. Yeah, you just kind of have to walk away from it.
I'm still waiting on my one. I haven't got it yet. So.
Yeah. I'm trying to, honestly, having said that, I'm trying to think if I've worked on something where I was like, honestly, the album I did for In Flames, I the Mask, it was the last record, not the re-release of Clayman, but the last new record they did. That was probably the most fulfilling creative experience I think I've ever had. That was top to bottom me. There were no road speed bumps anywhere. It was just imagination. All the band did was say, this is so awesome, keep going. And I was hired to make an album cover and a booklet with 6 pages. The booklet ended up being 30 pages.
Oh, wow.
So
wow.
Because I was like, we should tell a story through this entire album booklet and follow this little character. It was kind of based on Alice in Wonderland, actually.
Oh, nice.
And because Alice in Wonderland is a big favorite of mine.
That's insane.
So that's my one. That's
your baby?
Yeah, really that was it. And I've got here, hold on. I'm going to step away from the camera for a minute, but I'm not leaving. I just wanted to show you guys.
Jim, we lost the interview because of you.
Oh, no.
A buddy of mine worked at the Henson Company for a while and was really good at building puppets. And I had him construct my little guy from the album cover.
Oh,
and so
wow.
I paid for this with my own money. I just wanted one. And then sure enough, they had to scan this because they ultimately ended up producing a statue of him. And
super cool.
So what you're seeing is the prototype and seeing the actual product. So I actually got a statue. No articulation because that was way too expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that was one of my. I mean, I got to make an album for my favorite band. I got to be completely and wholly creative on the entire process, and then they ended up making a toy out of it. And I got to co-direct and produce one of their music videos. So that's goes to show you what passion can do, you guys.
Yes,
man, that's
so
insane.
Awesome.
That's just insane.
Super cool. Oh my gosh.
It was never ever like a big deal. It was never a big conversation. It was never a big like, oh man. It was just like, Blake can do this. Blake, do you want to do this? And I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. It was always the most casual thing in the world. And then I step back and I'm like, 15-year-old me would be just filling his shorts.
Yes.
Because
yes.
Who gets to do these things? But, and again, and just like you guys, when you surround yourself with like-minded, creative, good people, it's amazing how the universe just starts handing you golden eggs all the time.
Yeah.
It's insane. And it doesn't last. It won't. But
now I have to ask: have you ever been handed a project? Like I've seen you've done like Ready Player One. It's a Spielberg film. It's a big film. Have you ever been handed a project and you're just like, okay, yeah, I can do that, and then like door closes and you're like, I can't do this.
I think there's a little bit of that in just about everything I do. Honestly, I think anybody that's asked to take on a project for someone else with someone else's money has a moment of like, really don't want to screw this up.
Like Ready Player One. Like they're like, okay, Blake, here's Ready Player One. Steven Spielberg. Well, I got this.
It was the situation with
Spielberg.
Well, it was a little different. I mean, basically the way it works when we get projects is we'll all have a big meeting with all of us art directors, creative directors in the company, in kind of a room, and they're like, and I mean, the higher ups there generally try to pick people that are suited. You know, Ready Player One was very suited because I love 80s movies and I love 80s techniques and I love all of that stuff. And I was a huge fan of the book. But that was the first question they asked. Who's read the book? And I was like, I have read the book 5 times. So, you know, they were like, and it wasn't like, oh, Blake's in charge. You know, he gets to, I became the creative lead on that just because I was churning out the most work. I was staying there the latest. I was the one that really kind of had a vision for what I wanted the key art to be. And then eventually just the other people working on it just started kind of falling off. And by like month 4, it was just me. I was the only person continually having revisions and continually working. Cause I mean, it's a slow process. I mean, it is like death by 1,000 pinpricks trying to get a poster made. So, you know, so that was that one. And that was super gratifying though, cause it was mine. It was my baby. I saw it through from beginning to end. And, you know, I got to see my work on the side of Warner Brothers and I got to get a Spielberg poster. I mean, I got 4 finishes on that project, which was pretty, that doesn't happen too often for too many people. So that was kind of a cool thing. Nice feather in my cap.
So gratifying to like go outside, like go down in LA and a bus just goes by and you're like, I did that. Oh, and I did that.
Yeah. It's a trip because I'm telling you guys, yeah, it's not a.
But is it gratifying or is it frustrating because you know, and your family, your friends, everyone knows, but no one else might know because you listed all these incredibly, like the posters I can see in my mind in an instant, but the names I'm like, I don't know who that is.
And to be perfectly frank, it's rarely ever, it's not just me that worked on Ready Player One. We have a photography team, we have a digital team, we have a 3D team, we have a finishing team that will take my artwork and then basically blow it up so it can be used for billboards and literally any kind of avenue. Right. They essentially recreate my work. Yeah. I mean, the creativity is happening with me or with whatever art director's working on it.
Yeah.
But it takes a village to proper movie poster. You know, Gone on Stage.
Yeah, I mean, I work in TV. I do TV news, and you know, I'm just one part of one big hand.
Absolutely,
I understand.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And that's why. Well, that's why we do things like this. It's why I do posters on my own that aren't connected to BLT because I have a lot of itches I can't scratch in the studio system just because you just can't. We're talking about a lot of money. We have the people that approve these things. I mean, there's like dozens of them. So it's not just one guy that's like, okay, this is great. I mean, it's an entire team of people who are generally not artists, not creatives. They're just marketing strategists and people that are like, all right, how can we utilize this picture in a way that, you know, generates the most income for whatever project it's for.
Right.
So, you know, that's kind of a bummer, but, you know, it's just sort of everybody's working for the man. You can't get around it.
I have a question though. Have you ever done a poster that you weren't satisfied? Like they needed it needed to be done, it needed to get out, and then like you see it on like a billboard and you're just like I did like an arm or a leg, or I just didn't get the likeness right, or that just drives you. I know for some artists that perfection is key, like perfection is perfect, but you know, time frames are time frames. So if they say, hey, we got to get
honestly, we're directed. We're like, use this shot of Tom Holland, use this shot of whatever, you know, put this head on this person. Like we're told a lot of things that we have to creatively kind of figure out how to make not look ridiculous. And I think to your point, the only poster I put out that I was really dissatisfied with was the poster I did for Spider-Man Far From Home. Originally, the layout of that was really cool. It was Peter, and then he was flanked by Jake Gyllenhaal and Sam Jackson, and then you had Jon Favreau and Zendaya and Marissa Tomei. It was this really nice kind of pyramid composition. Okay. Well, then they're like, get rid of Marissa Tomei and change the position of Jake Gyllenhaal, and it just completely ruined the composition. And I didn't have any choice. They're like, we have to finish this. Like they have to. It just has to be that way, and that happens all the time. So my first version of that poster was really slick, and then you know. Because of approvals, I mean, you have talent approvals. Tom Holland doesn't like the way his nose looks. Jake Gyllenhaal is not happy with his... I mean, these are all things we have to address.
Wow.
One of the best ones was I was working on the Jack Ryan series, and I did this really cool Comic-Con poster of him. I mean, it wasn't that cool. It was just him standing there. But they did a really neat, like, metallic print, and it was, like, pretty sweet. But they told me, they're like, Krasinski doesn't like his picture. He doesn't like the image. And I'm like, why? He looks phenomenally heroic. It's, like, a really good one. And the reason was because his package was very aggressive in the image. And I completely did not notice that. I wasn't looking there, you know? I mean, we're talking outline like Dirk Diggler business. So,
Hey, time out.
I mean, and I gotta say, you know, kudos to Emily Blunt for locking that down. But anyway, yeah, I had to clone out his member, so to speak, so that he would approve the shot. So, I mean, the things we're asked to do are just ridiculous.
Hey, let's take a time out, guys. I'm waiting for Blake's.
Getting a little.
Yeah, your video is getting it way out of sync somehow. I don't know how.
Here, let me see. I'm trying to figure out where I can make the connection stronger, if I can. It's probably because my girlfriend is balls deep in TikTok.
Hey, don't knock TikTok. It's
I just started using
some of us. That's all we have.
TikTok is a time suck. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's absolutely.
Hey, you know what? If you're trying to promote something though, it pays off, because that is where 100% of my Etsy sales come through.
That's where everybody's That's where everybody's eyeballs are.
Oh yeah, that's why I started using it.
Hey,
I had something kind of blow up this week, and my follower count just like skyrocketed all over, and I'm like, all of a sudden now I have all this, and I'm like, oh, I gotta use this, promote my stuff, because like it just happens, and it's super useful.
That's scarier than not getting any attention, is when you suddenly get lots of it really fast, and you want.
Oh, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm terrified. Like so many people I can disappoint now. Like 12,000 people I can disappoint now. So that's super fun. But it's, you know, I can't wait till you guys start using TikTok for ECPC, because this is.
I mean, now that you say that, I feel like I maybe drop a few art pieces on there and just see what happens.
Oh, Blake, you would blow up, my dude. Like the art community and the D&D community, that's really where my niche was. But the art community is so supportive and so
I really
vocal.
need to,
and
well,
I need to do a D&D
with him being ingrained with pop culture. I think his stuff would blow up pretty big.
Oh yeah, so people think it's all like dances, and it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
You'll have to like, you know, slide up about 12 times, and then you find a good one, and then you do another 20, and you find a good one.
Right.
Well, and the more the algorithm, the more you interact with, it's just going to show you. I don't get sent like teenagers dancing anymore, because I've been on it for about a year, and now it's all art, nerd, D&D, and dogs doing funny, stupid stuff.
Oh, I love that though. That's good.
So,
okay, we're good again. So feel free to pick it back up anytime.
Okay.
All right.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Oh, we were.
I don't either.
We were talking about Krasinski's package.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh right.
And go.
How could we forget?
Man. God. Yeah.
That was Krasinski's number in 3, 2, 1.
I'm telling you, it was bigger than the TV show. That's
why
for sure.
he like
oh my gosh.
He didn't
I love that he was like, no.
Oh,
well, it was funny because, you know, when you hear that talent isn't approving an image, the first assumption is, oh, they don't like their expression, or they've got a zit, or there's something with their face that's wrong. And he looked so good, and I was just like, there's no way this isn't an approved shot. And then they're like, and then I was like, oh God.
But
so I had to clone it out.
Now that I hear you say that, I mean, he started Some Good News.
Yes.
That sounds like something he would do. Like, hey man, I don't want my
Yeah,
it's his
The
brand.
thing
It's his
being like-
brand. He's
Yeah,
not
like,
that.
you know.
Oh, he's so
a very,
pure. Like he's such a pure person.
Yeah.
I love him so much.
BLT did both of the Quiet Place posters, and
Love those
obviously
movies.
he's got director approval over any advertising, or at least he gets to heavily weigh in.
Yeah.
And I've only heard that he was a dream, that he was super cool and really
awesome.
responsive and very creative and fun to work with. So
that's good.
Kind of nice.
That's
It's
so
nice
cool.
when the good ones are good.
It is, because I love that
Such
show.
a relief. I stress over that. I stress over whether my heroes actually are good people.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to meet certain people because I don't want to meet Dave Grohl because I'm terrified.
I think that one
what
would
if
not
he's a jerk? I think so too. I'm almost positive, but just in case, just gonna leave.
You wanna
him
keep-
on a pedestal.
My hero was awesome.
So we don't mind meeting them because we want to understand who they are. We want to get to know these people, and so many of them are very open and like to tell stories. As long as because we're not TMZ. We're not looking for the dirt or that stuff.
Right.
We want the fun stories. What are you passionate about? What created your passion? Fun stuff that's happened to you in your career and stuff like that.
Sure.
And you just have to set yourself up. You are going to meet a few that are not that great. So.
Yeah. Everybody's journey's different.
Yeah.
And I've met all walks of life in terms of that. Luckily, just for me, all of the poster people I've ever met were the coolest people I've ever met and am friends with to this day. Like I said, I get to work with In Flames. They are the nicest. For a death metal band from Sweden, I don't think you could find nicer human beings. And I've worked with a couple other. Actually, that kind of soured me on, or not soured me, but when I assumed working with every band post In Flames would be like working with In Flames. And that was a real come to Jesus at one point because, I don't want to speak. I'm not going to say anything ill about anybody, but when I worked with Slayer, that was not as gratifying as working with In Flames. Certain people in that band just were not very cool to me. They're not very cool to anybody.
Yeah.
They're
they're
very much rock stars.
Yeah.
And
I think it's worth noting that I've never seen you fangirl. In fact, I've seen you opposite fangirl. James, we were in the same bar as James Marsden once.
Oh yeah, I remember that night.
Our entire table was and he was just at the bar, and Blake was like, "If any of you say anything, I will leave you here. He is a person having a drink."
Dude was in an Irish pub just trying to have a beer with a friend. He doesn't need 8 people being like, "Hey, Cyclops," that's not a good thing. Now, granted, James Marsden, just like anyone, like any of us, I'm sure he was super stoked when people said, "Hey," it's part of the job.
Yeah.
But no, granted, I'm
but
spoiled.
You had the ability to keep your cool. You were he's just a person. You kept that in your mind, and the rest of us just went stupid.
We had to do the same thing.
It's
we had to do the same thing when we would open up for globally known bands, and we're nobodies. Sure. We were meeting some of our heroes, and some of them were cool, some of them were not. And in fact, there were stories where all the bands are supposed to get a sound check moment. You go out on the stage, check all your levels, all that good stuff, make sure everything's good to go. Well, we're nobodies, and so we had instances where globally known bands would take up all of our sound check time, and we got nothing. We had to roll on the stage and make it sound perfect from go. And so sometimes it's just part of it.
Right.
And we would totally retain ourselves. We would not, run up to them. "Oh my God, can I have your autograph?" Because a lot of them, in those moments, or when it's time before the show, are not ready for it. Now, after the show, a lot of them get super cool because the stress is gone, the show's over,
right?
All of them, So
100%. I think I've been with In Flames a couple times, and the problem with guys being that nice is, if the bartender's cool, they'll be like, "Come hang out with us. We're on tour. We're just hanging out." But then the bartender will get weird when other bands show up, or will fanboy too hard, and it'll make everybody uncomfortable, and things like that. So, you know, there's always that kind of stuff to deal with. I mean, you know, I've even dealt with it slightly. Like when I went to Sweden and people found out that I did art for them because they're so huge over there.
Yeah.
I had some fanboys, you know, cozying up to me, and it kind of sucked. You know.
I mean, just to speak on behalf of the fanboys, we don't mean to, okay? Like
I know, and
I have
get
no
it.
chill.
I totally get it. But it's that thing where
but I
it's
also avoid those situations because I know I have no chill. And so
well, like
that's why I don't go and seek celebrity interaction because I have no chill.
Well, like you were just saying, it's, you know, everybody, it's just people, and they're all just doing a job. They just happen to have an extra cool job. So, you know, and I don't know. It's, you just want to tell people, like, you can just exist in the room with me. Tell me a little bit about you, and it's going to go way better than you just dumping all of this on someone. I mean, of course, who doesn't want to hear that their art is appreciated? Of course, that's amazing. And anytime, I mean, I can tell you my most fanboy ever moment, and this one was good. So, buddy, this was during the 2 years I was making the art on my own. So money was not, I didn't have a lot of money to go out all the time or anything like that. And he said, hey, man, they're showing Ghostbusters 2 at the ArcLight. They're doing a screening, and Ivan Reitman's going to be there to do a Q&A afterwards. Oh. Now, I am a Ghostbusters fanatic. It was my first favorite movie. It was, there's so many things about Ghostbusters I can say. I have a proton pack downstairs. Like a really, really good one.
We have multiple prototypes.
So I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to dump $40 on this and drinks. And, you know, anytime you go out in LA, you're going to spend $70. Doesn't matter where you go. So he's like, no. He's like, you have to come. You owe it to yourself to do this. He's like, and bring your Ghostbusters piece. I'd done a Ghostbusters portrait at that point. And he's like, bring that. Maybe we'll run into him. And I was like, fat chance. Because I was like, they're just going to usher him after the Q&A and just get him out of there because he doesn't want to talk to us. So we get there, having a beer. I run off to get some popcorn. I get a text from my buddy who's with me, and he says, yo, Reitman is sitting next to me alone. And so I'm a pretty tall, lanky guy. I mean, I gazelle across the theater to get to and I got that rolled up print. And sure enough, there I am on the balcony bar of the ArcLight Hollywood, and Ivan Reitman is sitting by himself, and I get to go talk to him. And I could barely speak. My voice was shaking. My hands were shaking. And I just said, hi, I'm Blake. I'm an artist. Your movie literally changed my life. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. Here's a portrait I did of it. Could I get your autograph? And he was so rad. He said, oh, it's like, this is great likenesses of the guys. It's such a fun idea. Thank you, Blake. It's so nice to meet you. And he signed it. And Justin, after it was over, was like, dude, I have never seen you that nervous, ever. and I was, man. I could not. That's the one time I just could not hold it together because of just the weight of that moment and how perfect it was.
Oh, it's Ivan Reitman. Come on, man. I would not. I mean, that's one I probably could not hold my cool on at all.
No, and for me, I mean, and what's funny is, you know, for us, that's like a holy grail interaction. Yeah. For most people, you know, they'd want to meet Bill Murray or, you know, Dan Aykroyd or one of the stars, you know, but for us, you know, I met the guy who was the executive producer of the final cut of Blade Runner. He's the guy that insisted on all of the reshoots, on all of the fixes they did in the final cut. Yeah. His name's Charles. And I saw him in the theater at the Chinese. And I was just like, because I went to this Hero Complex screening of Blade Runner. And he was there. And I was just like, hey, Charles, you don't know me. But, dude, the work you did on the – hold on. I'm going to let the video catch up.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. But I was just like, hey, Charles, man, like, the stuff you did on the final cut, like, you made it into the perfect movie, you know? And he just, like, looked at me, like, incredulously and was like, thanks. You know, because he's not even like, he wasn't even like an OG producer on it. He's just the guy that convinced Ridley to do all of these things and spend this money to make this particular Blu-ray version of Blade Runner, which in my opinion is the definitive version. So getting to meet people like that to me is always more exciting than meeting like Tom Cruise or something. You know, even though Tom is phenomenally creative and is the last true movie star, but leave that there.
All right, I'm going to talk about a few of your pieces that's on your website. If for those out there you don't know, go to spaceboycomics.com. You can see his work. Tell me about, because the first thing that popped out for me was Betty White Ranger. I love that. That is awesome.
Well, that the first piece I ever did that really like got any attention whatsoever was when I made Han Burgundy. Mm-hmm. It was, and that was one of those. At that point, I'd made some posters. What's that?
I said, which is great. That's a great piece.
Oh, thank you. Literally, that was one of those. I had done so many posters before that I spent weeks on and labored over, and nobody cared. And then all of a sudden, my buddy is like, "I'm going to be Ron Solo for Halloween," and I'm like, "That'd be funny to draw." So I literally made that Han Burgundy piece, and it just like went viral. It like blew up. It was all over Pinterest and stuff. Mm-hmm. So people sort of expected that from me, like that kind of parody, strews and.
Okay.
So since then, I made Landizzle Calrizzle with Snoop Dogg being Lando. I've made Darth Vader with Garth from Wayne's World. Yep. And then my buddy hit me up the other day. I was just kind of sitting around doodling, and he said, he texted me and he said, "I would love to see the Golden Girls as Power Rangers." And I was like, "Man, that's so funny." I was like, "That's such a good idea." So I start looking through, figuring out how I'm going to do it. And I'm like, well, what sucks is there's only 4 Golden Girls and there's 6 Power Rangers, which means you're going to have and in my nerd brain, like who really cares about that? But I was like, no, it's got to be accurate.
Yeah.
But then it hit me. I'm like, Betty White Ranger. Oh my God, I got to do that. So
yes.
And I mean, I've already got stuff laid out for the Jack Black Ranger, the Tom Green Ranger. I've got. I wanted to do.
That's cool.
Because yellow is a very difficult name to find. I was going to do the Danny Aiello Ranger.
Okay.
So, anyways, but I've always got stuff like that kind of cooking in the back of my head, and so that just came out of my stupid sense of humor. I just thought that was funny, and the great part was the day that I did that. My friend hit me up on Facebook once I'd posted it and said, "This is the guy whose couch I slept on when I first moved out here. He's the guy that got me my start." Mm-hmm. He said, "I'm friends with Betty's manager. I'm sending this to him right now." And he says he's going to show Betty tonight. And I was like, what? But I was like, is she even going to get the joke? Like,
does she know what the Power Rangers are?
Yeah. Is Betty White following 90s children's action programming? But, she, I guess she saw it. I never heard back from her, but, the fact that it was put in front of her to me is amazing. So,
yeah, that's really cool.
But
legend.
But honestly though, and I've talked to some schools and classes and stuff about making art for a living and everything. And what's insane about right now is you can tweet a piece of your artwork at Betty White or at Kanye or whoever, and the odds are fairly good they'll see it.
Yeah.
The gatekeepers are kind of gone now with social media. There's very few people that you really just don't have access to anymore.
Unless there's somebody that just does not actually do it and they only have a team of people handling for them. But if they're actually using it themselves, they're going to see it. The chances are really high they're going to find it. So
guys, I did a Eureka's Castle piece of fan art. This was like a month ago.
Wow.
And you know who commented on it?
Who?
R.L. Stein.
Oh, wow.
Because he was a writer on the show.
Oh my gosh!
And most people don't know that. And so, I made a point. I made a point to tag him in the description. And I was like, I don't know if you know this, but R.L. Stine. And he commented, and he was like, beautiful piece of art. Most people don't know I wrote on that show.
Wow.
And,
that
Dan Levy,
so cool.
Dan Levy commented on my Schitt's Creek piece. I've had, Colin Hanks liked my Orange County piece I did. And I mean, look, it's a like. It's 1 second out of their life. It doesn't mean anything. But it's just neat to know that the people that...
That's huge.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Well, it's the people that inspired us. Yeah. And it's just like the fact that you took even a microsecond to just throw some appreciation out was just so cool.
Yes.
That's insane.
And I did this Orange County piece because I guess, in the movie, I don't know, I'm obsessed with Orange County, first of all, but the portrait that's hanging in the Brumder's house of Colin Hanks and Jack Black's character, there's like a bad, like artist rendering of them as brothers. And it's like purposefully.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Colin Hanks kept that after they wrapped, and he had it forever. And it got bleached by the sun and, wasn't in super good condition. And he posted it. And Will Wheaton jumped in and said, I'm sure there's some Instagram artist out there that can redo this portrait. So I did, and that's the piece that he liked.
Oh, wow.
And I even DM'd Will Wheaton, and I was like, hey, you don't know me, but I did what you asked, and it's right here. If
just in case,
if he wants it,
if he,
come get it,
because things like that, I'm telling you, man, like, and my Guardians of the Galaxy piece, like I did that because Arclight Cinemas was having a contest. They said, hey, send us your fan art and we'll pick the best one and you can go see the movie for free.
Yeah.
I didn't win, but then I realized I can just sell posters and use that money to go see the movie.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
It was like that Homer Simpson conversation. Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Oh, Lord.
That's great. Shows you the power.
But, I mean, and again, and that's kind of scary. But that's also the advantage of people, not just people that make posters, but people that make anything.
Yeah.
If you make music, if you make D&D dice towers, if you make something, you're always in an advantageous position for just about anything because you can always make something new. And for me, I'm super lucky because everybody likes pretty pictures. Show me the meanest, crankiest, horrible person in the world, and if I do a portrait of their mom, all of a sudden they're kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's sort of the power of the visual medium, and I think that's why being an artist is, when people say, "Oh, you can't be an artist and make money," I'm like, "Are you insane?" It's the literal. You're the god of your own imagery. Like you can make anything.
Yep.
So yeah, I get a little grumpy when people are like, "Oh yeah, you can't make money being an artist," and I'm like, "I beg to differ, sir."
Yeah. Obviously, you're very living proof that is just not the case.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
And look,
you have the passion, and you want something that you can get it. Some people don't have that passion.
It's true, and some people aren't interested in it. It's not that there's nothing. It's nothing wrong with anybody. There's no one's deficient. It's just they're like, no, I like my job at the post office, and I'm going to spend time with my family, and I could give two poops about posters or celebrities or movies or and that's totally fine. That's just our little world that we love so much and meant so much to us. So, but that applies to anyone who makes. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think it's just also worth noting, though, that you have what I've heard referred to as soft skills, which are things that aren't really trained into someone that you just kind of have, which is, I just know this because I know you growing up, but you were raised to be very respectful, good manners, you're on time, you're enthusiastic, you stay late, you come early, you work hard. Things that cost nothing, take no training, and are really just part of a mental decision. And those, I think, could be attributed to a lot of your success as well, because I don't know if you know this, Blake, but you're a pretty likable person. Like, you're fun.
Good art.
And I think that is also to be said, because not only are you talented, but like you've gotten this far by being fun to work with, by showing up on time, by being enthusiastic, by those soft skills.
Well, that's very sweet of you to say, first of all. And I think a lot of that ties back to, as you said, I had super supportive, amazing parents that even though I was a very strange Midwest child, they still stuck by me, and I got to do acting classes, and I got to do oil painting, and I got to do all of these creative things. They really, they zeroed in on the things I was interested in and let me kind of live there. And I also, almost more importantly, had incredibly great mentors. Even our little town in Metropolis, I had amazing teachers.
Yep.
I had an amazing art teacher who I'm still friends with. I'm still friends with all of them to this day. In fact, it's one of my favorite things when I come home is to visit my old teachers. I wanted to be a teacher. That was my first, but then I realized how much school was involved and that I would also be in school for the rest of my life. So I was like, nope.
I want to pass on that.
But yeah, I get to teach in very small, more fun capacities now. So, but anyway, I mean, I think what you just said is super valid. And I think it's the most important lesson I was ever taught in my life is be nice to everybody. Doesn't matter who it is, because you don't know if they're the president of company. You don't know if they're the coffee guy, and sometimes the coffee guy becomes the president of the company. So be nice to that guy.
Yeah.
And like you said, it costs nothing. The only reason people aren't cool to other people is for insecurity and ego. And now I'm not saying I don't have an ego, and I'm not saying I can't be a butthead sometimes, but generally I try to treat, live the golden rule and treat people right. And it's only ever worked out. It's never backfired.
Exactly.
I've never been nice to somebody and it came back to bite me in the butt. So
Truer words never spoken, man. That's
except for that weird kid in Sweden. That was it.
Oh, man. That's
Blake,
awesome.
thank you so much for being on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. So much fun. And if I can ever be a talking head to just completely bore people with poster speak, I would happily do it.
Have you ever
I
thought
think
about?
we have a potential Roadhouse episode, though, don't we?
We're going to do
okay.
Swayze. We're going to do Patrick Swayze.
Here's the deal.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Here's the deal with the Roadhouse piece. I'll close with this because this is pretty cool. I work with a guy. He gets brought in to pinch hit for us sometimes in our illustration department. His name is Steve Chorney. Steve Chorney is another invisible hero in the game. He did Stakeout. He did a lot of TV guide artwork for Miami Vice in the 80s. He did Follow That Bird. He's made a lot of illustrated movie posters that were phenomenal. He's a contemporary of Drew Struzan. They were friends in school. But he works at BLT. So I get to see and talk to him often. And one day I said, hey, Steve, I don't want to sound like a weirdo, but one Saturday, would you like to come into the office and I can watch you paint? Because I would love to learn your traditional techniques, because this is still a dude that's using colored pencils and, acrylic paints. Okay. So, brilliant portraiture artist, just brilliant in every facet of the word. But so I did, and he was cool with it. And he, on a Saturday, he's like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'll design a poster and we can then work on that. That way, we can share it, Yeah. And basically that piece behind me is the one I brought in, and it's a Roadhouse piece. And he's like, all right, I'm going to do the first half and show you, and you're going to do the second half. That way, first of all, I thought that was fair because I didn't want him to think like, oh, I'm just trying to get art, because his original art sells for like tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
And so, yeah, I recorded the whole conversation, and I'm almost finished with the piece, still working on it. But yeah, that's where that piece came from. So now I have my own original Roadhouse poster that I made that I did with Steve Chorney, a legend in the field. So that's what that is. So that's one of my absolute favorite things that I have.
That's awesome.
That is so cool.
So cool.
Yeah, definitely. If we do a Roadhouse episode, I need to watch the movie before we do that.
You can watch it.
You've never watched that, Micah?
I've never seen Roadhouse.
Oh my god!
Man.
Oh my god! I made my buddy custom action figures for his birthday. Like we are really obsessed. Like we've got a framed photograph with us and Rowdy Harrington, the director. Oh, you guys will love this. We can cut this out of the episode, but you guys will love this story because we go to a Roadhouse midnight screening, and I don't know if you know this, but the DP on Roadhouse was Dean Cundy, the guy that shot Back to the Future and Jurassic Park and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then all of a sudden he did Roadhouse. So Dean Cundy is at the screening, right? And my buddy is like, "Hey, Dean, could we get a photo? Would that be cool?" And his girlfriend's in the back taking the photo, and Dean Cundy tells her, if you move over here, the lighting will be better. So he literally DP'd
directed
the photo that they did together.
But I have to say, as a TV director, TV director, it is hard to not do that. Like you'll be like, actually, if you do this, why don't you just lift up It's hard. It's in our DNA.
Yep.
Can't turn it off.
You can't.
And I can't look at any piece of art ever and not have something to say about it. It's just it's part of our creative expression, and it's part of who we are. But the beauty part was Justin was wearing a Double Deuce shirt, which is the bar in the movie. And I was like, dude, you got directed by Dean Cundy while wearing that shirt. You're basically a Roadhouse sequel.
Oh gosh, that's awesome.
Maybe I'll watch Roadhouse today.
Oh my God, man. Do it.
And
let's absolutely do an episode on it because I will get
fun.
the figures in here. I'll get that poster up big behind. Oh, I can talk endlessly about Roadhouse.
So it'll be like a film analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of Roadhouse.
Okay.
And Roadhouse is unique in a lot of ways because it is an incredibly successful movie in spite of itself.
Yeah.
All I know is the Family Guy episode where he punches him and he goes, Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
See, my favorite is Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec, where he their TV is broken on Parks and Rec, and so he just tells them the entire movie of Roadhouse.
He does the one-man show of Roadhouse.
He does a one-man show of Roadhouse. He does a one-man show of Babe, of the movie with the pig. And so, my husband and I literally quote his rendition of that all the time. It's hysterical.
So good.
So don't watch that first, Micah, because that'll spoil it.
Yeah.
I've already seen all of Parks and Rec.
Oh man.
But
then don't. I mean, just
I don't remember.
I promise in the first 90 seconds, you are going to be into that movie.
Yep.
Like that is a movie that 90 seconds in, you get everything you need to know about that movie.
Yep.
Everything. From the magenta credit type to the main title placement on that girl's ass, like everything about it.
Spoiler!
I'm telling you.
Oh gosh.
Blake,
Love
thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Fight on girl's ass.
Yeah. Oh, we should edit it so we end on John Krasinski's package.
Yeah, package. We have to end on the nameplate on the girl's ass.
Now, what I should do is take that clip out and make it a outtake and put it on TikTok. Just have that one, please.
Yes.
And we're talking about John Krasinski's package. Go.
Listen, the takeaways from today: look at the Roadhouse poster and the toothpaste type. Check out John Krasinski's non-package in the Jack Ryan art because it's gone. And watch Roadhouse.
We know
3
now
times.
that's a lie. That's not real.
It's not.
We know.
I've still got the original photos somewhere, I'm sure. So
I mean, we said we're not TMZ, but this feels a little like TMZ. Like, today we exposed the truth.
But today, Blake, we really thank you for being a part of our show, man. It's been a really fun conversation, man.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Hopefully, we get to do it again.
Absolutely.
You guys have to come out to LA and do an on location episode.
Oh yeah.
It'd be amazing.
You got a place I could stay? I got
hell yeah, man. Well, Ash and the kids get one room for sure, but
hey man, I sleep on concrete. I sleep on the floor.
Oh, anytime you guys come out here, absolutely look me up.
Okay.
Oh, of course. We will.
Beers will be drank and nerddom will be discussed.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Huzzah.
And Disneyland.
All right.
Thank you for being a part of our show. Please visit ECPCTV.com for information about our show and how to follow us on this epic journey. Stay eclectic. End program.